Seattle to see my friends from high school, and I totaled my car, which I think was like partly because I was like still so upset that my mom died, even though it had been like almost a year already. I was really into this music scene with the experimental music ensemble and this like one teacher who led it. I also just felt like he didn't really have like any compassion for me. Eventually I ended up just quitting the experimental music ensemble because I booked flights to like see my family, and I did send an email asking if this time was gonna work with the rehearsal schedule and everything, and then I booked the flights to see my family. And then when he sent the rehearsal schedule later, then he was so pissed that I was going out of town, and I just felt like I wasn't getting paid or anything to be in this music ensemble, so I just finally quit. Also in that experimental music ensemble, I also got ear damage because it was so loud, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I think something's wrong with my ear, and like to this day I still have ear damage where like different things will make it like crackle like that, and that was like the first time it happened, and it was really bad. So then I dated the second to last boyfriend I had. After that, we started dating. I returned to school for a couple more years after that, and I think Evergreen is a good liberal arts school. Like, it kind of opened my perspective to different things, but still academia was not for me, and I kind of continued to lose credits because I was really struggling financially. Like, when my mom passed away, the bills from the house in Florida were actually more than how much money I would receive every month, and like the trustee guy, he kept saying that it's like more than enough, and I was saying like it's actually not even like covering my bills, and I kind of started to like get into debt and stuff. The Florida house, with the money situation I was in and kind of like going into the red every month, and then the like having to care for this apartment that I moved into literally like the day my mom died, because like she died, and then I had to like pack up my dorm room and like move it over to this new apartment. So it was just like literally all too much for me, and I kept like losing credits every term, and I really didn't want to go to school. I felt like it was like signing up to be depressed when I just needed like time to myself. Finally, in the spring, I walked in the graduation ceremony, but I never actually like got the amount of credits to graduate. I like almost have the amount of credits to graduate, but I just did not want to go back in the fall. I gained a lot of fulfillment from the spiritual classes and community I was involving myself in, and the beautiful nature in Olympia. And then when I turned 23, that was the year like my dog Kramer died after 13 years. He was like really there for me. And then that was also when the second to last boyfriend and I broke up. And then pretty soon after that, I just wanted to like get over that guy. So then I began dating on Seeking Arrangement website, which I was hoping to find a man who would provide more for me than me for him for a change, but that wasn't what ended up happening. I did like have some fun kind of like dating briefly, even though I feel like it's kind of a lot of work too. Things were going really well with the last guy I dated. Now he's my co-parent. And I kind of made the decision to stop going to college. Like I said, I considered that for around a year. And I was spending more time at my boyfriend's home outside of Seattle than my home in Olympia. So I moved in with him for financial reasons, just because, like, why would I pay for an apartment that I'm barely at? Now, like, looking back, I realize I should have had a place of my own just to be independent. I ended up getting pregnant within a few months of moving in with him, since we weren't using protection, since I normally had very bad reactions to different forms of birth control, and men aren't normally willing to use protection in my experience. When I went to get a pregnancy test, I had no money to pay for it. Having a son completely changed me as a person, and I suddenly had a fire within me, and I hired an attorney to finally get in control of my trust fund for the first time. Not being able to pay for a pregnancy test was finally the last straw for me. I found out that the man who controlled my finances all these years, Michael Backer, was not even my trustee when I had been led to believe that he was all my life. My attorney and I began a lengthy process to remove him. My co-parent and I began fighting after I became pregnant, unfortunately. On the surface, I was holding it together, but behind the scenes, I was really struggling a lot, especially when COVID hit. I had my son in July of 2019. I missed my aunt's wedding, I remember, because things were so difficult between myself and Michael Backer and myself and my co-parent. I tried my best to save our family from breaking up like my parents did, but to no avail. When Lance was 1.5, I moved out. I went to my grandparents' home in South Carolina for a month to get my life back together, and they helped me hire an attorney to make our parenting plan for us, and a real estate agent to buy a forever home for Lance and me. The idea of a forever home feels like a forever time coming. I bounced around Airbnbs for a couple months and then rented an apartment in Newcastle after I bought a condo in downtown Seattle that I decided to fully renovate. My son began attending daycare full-time. Michael Backer was removed from having any hand in my finances after around a year-long process. I paid off all my debt and took a 2-week vacation in Miami and saw all my friends and family in South Florida. One of them let me know they're doing financial management at dinner. The renovation was getting nowhere, and after 1.5 years, I began the process of removing the corporate trustee, Wells Fargo, and replacing them with my friends. And so since my renovation wasn't happening after 1.5 years, it's a whole committee of people making the decisions. So it would always take a couple months to get money for each little thing. So it was really hard to get to other stuff, basically, and I had to call them pretty much every day that I could call and email them. And that's also what my mom and dad had to do. But now it's completely different. And it's kind of a funny thing, because remember back when I said that I was on the softball team? Well, it's actually, she was the pitcher on the softball team. And now she's kind of my main financial manager. And then her sister, who's in my grade, she's also they both work for their dad. And their dad used to be the coach. So yeah, now they're my financial managers. The process of removing Wells Fargo as corporate trustee and replacing them with that family, it's like now their uncle is my trustee and they're my financial managers. That process took around a year. After a year more, after the whole Michael Backer thing, took like 1.5 years. And that was finalized this past month. I'm feeling really optimistic and enjoying living in Seattle, and raising my son is a huge inspiration for me and motivation. Just like I said, feeling optimistic and really enjoying living life in Seattle. I said it once and I said it again. And that's my life story.